Now, let's learn how to analyze variance and standard deviation. In this video, I will show you how to calculate two important measures, variance and standard deviation. Variance is one measure of error, that is the distance of values from the mean. Standard deviation is the square root of the variance, and as we'll see elsewhere in this course, it's extremely useful. My sample file is 01_03_variance, and you can find it in the chapter 01 folder of the exercise files collection. In this workbook, I have a dataset in cells A4 through A13. And in it, I have values that reflect orders for a company. I've already calculated the mean or average in cell C1. To start, I need to calculate the error or distance from the mean of each of my order values. So, I'll click in cell B4 and I'll type equal. And I want to start with the value in A4, which is the order, and I will subtract the value in C1, which is the average. So, if the order is lower than the average, then we'll get a negative value. I do want the cell reference to A4 to change, but I don't want C1 to change because we'll always be looking at the same average. So, I'll press F4 to get an absolute reference. Press enter, and I get 3090. And we are rounding to whole numbers here. Now I can copy that formula to the rest of the range. So, I'll click cell B4 and double-click the fill handle at the bottom right corner of the cell, and you can see that the formula has been copied down. Now to calculate the variance accurately, I need to square the error. So, in cell C4 I'll type equal, and that will just be the value in B4 squared. So, I'll type a caret, indicating I want an exponent, and then the number 2. Press enter, and I get that value there. I'll click cell C4, double-click the fill handle again, and copy it down. One very common question is why you need to square the error to calculate variance. Well, let's see what happens if you don't. I'll go to cell B14, and then I will add up all of the errors. So, I'll press Alt plus equal to create an AutoSum formula. And then press Tab, and you can see that the error is 0. And that's because when you take an average, the sum of all the differences must be 0. That happens by rule. So, I will replace the formula in cell C14 and go ahead and click that cell if you happen to click away. Press Alt plus equal to get my AutoSum for the values from C4 to C13, enter, and there is that sum. Now I can calculate the variance. So, I'll go to cell C16 and I'll type an equal sign, and that will be C14, which again is the sum of my squared errors. And then a / for division, left parentheses, and it'll be account for the number of values in C4 through C13 minus 1. Then type a right parenthesis and enter. And I get that square root of 7,100,000 and a little bit more. Now if I want to calculate the standard deviation, I can go to cell C18 and take the square root of the value in C16. So, I'll type equal and square root, SQRT, and that's the value in C16. Right parentheses and tab so I don't scroll down in the workbook, and I get a standard deviation of 2666. Great, that value makes a lot of sense for a dataset that has a mean of 5482. 6 and a maximum value of about 9500. There are quicker ways to calculate the variance and standard deviation. So, I'll go ahead and show those to you now. I'll click in cell F16, type an equal sign, and I will use the var. S function. So, I'll type var S and we're assuming that we have a sample and not all of the data in a population. This is where the -1 comes in. We are assuming that we don't have all of our data, so that we're dividing by a slightly smaller number than we would otherwise, so we have a more conservative estimate. So, I'll type a left parentheses, and we are taking the variance of the sample in cells a 4 to a 30. Right parentheses and enter. And as you can see, we get 7,106,604. And if I go down to cell F18 and type equal stdevs again for the sample and a 4 through a 13 right parentheses and tab, then we get a standard deviation of 2666. I wanted to show you the mechanics of how variance and standard deviation are calculated, so you have an idea of what's going on when Excel makes those calculations for you. With variance and standard deviation in mind, you will get a lot out of the rest of the course. So if you are ready to take your skills level and unlock the full potential of your data, subscribe to my channel today. I can't wait to see you on the next video.